My husband slept with his sister for a year while we were together. I don't know what to do. Sorry, this is a long one. I feel like I have to give a lot of backstory for you to really take in the full scope of this situation. Throwaway account for hopefully obvious reasons. I 25F and my fiancé 27M dated for 4 years and have been engaged for close to a year. We met in college and clicked right away, and we've just been each other's person ever since. We'll call him Mark. He has a big family, including 3 half-siblings and a full biological brother. His mom married his stepfather when he was 3, and his dad isn't really in the picture, so they've had a blended family for as long as he can remember. His family is great. I'm really close with his mother and his sisters, including his half-sister 24F, who I'll call Jane. Jane went to college with us, small state, though she was really only in school at the same time I was, as Mark graduated a year after she started. Mark and I got an apartment together nearby while I was finishing school, and Jane would come over a lot. We made dinner together sometimes. Jane and I would study together at the apartment while Mark was at work, and it was a good setup. I really liked Jane, and her and Mark had been close since they were kids. They were always affectionate with each other like siblings, never anything I found strange, just an occasional arm around the shoulder and greeting hugs and stuff like that, maybe with the exception of an elaborate secret handshake they'd made up as kids that involved kissing the backs of each other's hands, but, you know, can't mess with secret handshakes. As my graduation was nearing, I started applying for jobs. We wanted to move to the large city in our state, about an hour away from our university, close enough to visit our respective hometowns, but better work opportunities and nightlife. When we had talked about life after college, Mark and I agreed that we wanted to move to the city, and we occasionally took visits on the weekends to see friends who lived there already and check out the bars and restaurants. About a month before graduation, I got an amazing job offer in the city with my dream company. I was ecstatic and excitedly told Mark when he got home from work that day. Mark celebrated with me for a minute, but then looked confused and said he assumed we would stay in our college town until Jane graduated a year later. I hadn't thought about it and asked why, since it was only an hour's drive and we could visit, but Mark was insistent that he'd worry about his sister being at university alone. I told him that I couldn't not take this job, and he understood how much it meant to me. Then he suggested that he renew the lease on our college apartment, stay for a year, and he could come to the city every weekend. I asked how he would pay for the apartment alone, and he casually suggested that Jane move in. She had still been living in the dorms, so it would be an upgrade. Honestly, the biggest issue I had with this was who wants to live with their older brother in college? But when I asked, he just shrugged and said him and Jane had always been close. I was disappointed that he'd rather live with his sister than move to the city with me, but he insisted he was just being a good brother watching over her and that an hour's drive was hardly long distance. It was only a year, so I eventually conceded, if it was what he really wanted. I graduated, moved to the city 2 months later, and the next year went fast. I was busting my ass at my new job, working long hours, and Mark was working full-time too, so we didn't see each other as often as we thought at first. He'd make the drive every 2-3 weeks, and I'd drive up there occasionally too, though not as often due to parking restrictions at the apartment Jane and him lived in. We were still very in love and texted all the time, so the distance really wasn't as bad as I'd been expecting, but I was still lonely a lot. Jane and I had become good friends at this point and talked on the phone at least once a week. She would joke about how Mark was just as bad of a roommate as she remembered and such, and whenever I came to visit the apartment, everything was just like it had been when I lived there still. Jane graduated the next year and ended up taking a job in a neighboring state, so Mark moved to the city and into our now shared apartment. He seemed a bit upset about not seeing her as often, but was excited to start our new life together. We've lived in the city together for the last 2 years, and he proposed last summer. When we were home for the holidays, everyone was super excited about our engagement except Jane, who said she was happy for us, but thought it was way too soon. I was confused. We'd been dating for over 4 years, so it certainly wasn't a shotgun wedding. I talked to Jane about it privately after a few days of being home, but she was acting a bit strange and almost defensive. She said that she loved me and was excited to have me in the family, but she just didn't think getting married this young was a good idea. I pressed her on the topic, joking she was younger than I was and acting like I was a child bride. She pretty much shut down and went inside. I thought it was weird as hell, but when I would mention Jane's behavior to Mark, he would shrug it off, saying I shouldn't worry about it and that she just didn't subscribe to the marriage path like most of us. Jane acted normal towards me the rest of the holidays, even when we hung out by ourselves without Mark, so I waved it off as Jane being weird. She'd always been a bit anti-establishment. This weekend was Mark's birthday, and we had a party at our place last night. Jane took a long weekend at her job so she could come down. The party was pretty small, just us, their younger brother, and a few of our mutual friends from college. We drank a lot, but Jane went totally off the rails and I ended up in the bathroom holding her hair back by the end of the night. Mark was already passed out. When she had puked herself out, I took my engagement ring off to Clorox the toilet seat and set it next to Jane on the lip of the tub. She picked it up, playing with it, and put it on her finger, before drunkenly cooing something like I always thought this would be my ring. I looked at her, baffled, and she clearly realized what she said and burst out into drunk, sloppy tears. I asked her what she meant, and she just shook her head and kept saying I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Keep in mind, I was still pretty drunk, just not Jane level, so I was certain I'd missed some crucial context while I was wiping the toilet seat. I calmed her down just enough to ask her again what she was talking about, and she just started talking. And talking. And talking. When she moved into my apartment, her and Mark were f-king each other. For a year. She was crying and said it just happened one night when they were drunk, and that she'd always had a f-ked up crush on him but never thought anything would happen, but then it just kept happening. For a year. I was so stunned and horrified that I just sat there with my mouth hanging open. The whole time, she just kept apologizing, saying that she knew it was gross and wrong but that they just loved each other so much and it was a mistake and she never thought we would get engaged and she was so sorry. It was like the dam had burst and she couldn't stop talking, while still sobbing and snotting all over herself. Minutes probably went by, and she just kept babbling, but I barely heard her after the initial bombshell. I finally snapped out of it and threw the bathroom door open and just walked right out of the apartment. I didn't even bother to grab my ring. I walked to my friend's apartment, probably 3 a.m. at this point, and just let myself in and passed out on her couch crying. I watch her cat sometimes, so I have her spare key. She found me this morning, and we spent the entire day on the couch as she listened to me wail and freak out while we got unceremoniously wine drunk. She's horrified, I'm horrified, and neither of us have enough details to make any of it make sense. My phone has been flooded with calls and texts from Jane and Mark, and I can't even bring myself to look at whatever they're texting me, let alone reply. I'm just horrified, and disgusted, and betrayed, and beyond confused. I keep hoping there's some explanation, that she made up some sick lie to get us to break up or something, but it all just makes a little too much sense. I'm writing this on my friend's laptop right now while she's at work. I just need any sort of advice you're capable of giving, Reddit. I'm so confused, and right now I just feel like running as far away as humanly possible, but I can't just leave. We have 3 more months on our lease and I can't quit my job, especially right now. I need closure and answers, but I don't even know if I want to know. I'm well aware of how insane this all sounds, but I wish I could make this up. Please help. FML.